It's now time to look at your newspaper headlines, and we're going to delve in further. We've got the Sunday Times, Sunday World, Sunday Tribune, and joining me for that discussion is Sunday Times and TimesLIVE editor Makhudu Sefara. Good afternoon. Thank you. Happy Easter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
It's great to be back, and it's great to see you. It's been an illustrious week, to say the least, and I don't think we're spared by these headlines. So perhaps we can start things off by looking at the Sunday Times. I mean, we've seen the big stories coming through there. The headliner, CR's Afrikaner trump card. Okay, yes. So the byline reads, Ramaphosa said to be casting net wide in search for ambassador to the US, with surprising names being touted as possible replacements for Rasul in the US Post. That's what Lizeka writes. Okay, so let's get into some of the names that have been coming through. The likes of Rolf Meyer, the likes of Martinez van Schalkwyk. So talk us through what those names are, the history, perhaps the relevance this time around, and what this is going to do to men relations at large.
Yeah. As we know, the country has frosty relations with the United States as a result of the decisions taken by U.S. President Donald Trump, and also following the expulsion from the country of Ibrahim Rasul as the ambassador of our country. And so the process that has ensued has been that President Cyril Ramaphosa needed to find a suitable replacement for Rasul. Yeah. And so the discussion internally has been, so what constitutes suitable in the context? And people have said, look, given the kind of racism that seems to be coming out of Washington, and given the things that a number of people in the country have said, including the latest appointee, the envoy, 4 years ago, about Trump being this racist, homophobe, right-winger, so you can't just send anyone, and so. When our team spoke to people close to the process, part of the list that's coming up includes the people that you've just mentioned. So Rolf Meyer, as many people will know, is somebody who worked very closely with President Ramaphosa in the period leading to the 1994 elections as a representative of the National Party, which was in power at the time. As a lead negotiator, with the CR being the most prominent in the ANC, the two of them working very closely together. So the question has been, is it possible to get him, given the constituency he represents, and also given his identity as an Afrikaner, to send to Washington to represent the interests of our country. And the reason the Afrikaner identity becomes crucial in the context, is because President Trump has said that there are many bad things that are happening in South Africa, and this includes an onslaught on Afrikaners. There's a genocide reportedly that's happening against Afrikaners, and the Afrikaners have been given a refugee status in the US. And so if you have an Afrikaner then representing the interests of the state in Washington as an ambassador, they will be, most likely to get their foot in the door, because the last thing you need is to appoint an ambassador who goes to Washington who is ignored by everybody. You remember Marco Rubio said of Ibrahim, we have nothing to discuss with him. He's persona non grata. Now, you don't want anybody who arrives in Washington that the establishment feels we have nothing to discuss with him. And so the thinking is, if you appoint somebody like Rolf Meyer, they might have something to discuss with him about what is happening to Afrikaners in South Africa, and so there's a number of other names that are included in the piece.
Yeah, so we've seen identity politics playing out, misinformation as well, regarding these narratives. When do we
Correct.
also assert our agency in this so that we're not playing into
Yes,
playing
yes,
the
yes.
we need to also assert ourselves. They're obviously dictating the terms, but what's the strategic response in that front? I know that there's also Andries Nel. He's a long-standing
Sure,
ANC
sure.
member.
Yes.
It seems, according to the article, that he is a front runner,
Yes.
human rights lawyer. Talk to us a little bit more about what's coming through on that front. Even Martinus van Skalkwyk, there was another name, Gerhardus Korenhof, Ayanda Dlodlo at the World Bank as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, the initial point that you raised is really very important. It's about how do you respond as a country? Do you send someone that you believe is acceptable to the host, or do you send somebody that you believe will be able to advance your interests in the best way? And if there's no confluence between the two, then what do you do? And so the high-level analysis that has been done is that the president looked at that situation and felt it is important to appoint an envoy before you appoint the ambassador. And when you appoint the envoy essentially ahead of that appointment pursues diplomatic trade and other priorities of the country. And in doing so, the president has sought to not appease Washington, but to choose somebody that he, as leader of our country, is happy with. And that person happens to be SABC Jonas. That, of course, comes with its own background and controversies, etc., etc. But that's to deal with the question that you ask about agency, that do we just appoint because other people are, or do we appoint because we want somebody? And I must indicate, Jonas has made some controversial remarks in the past.
In his capacity as a private citizen.
Yes, as an activist. But Jonas is a great thinker. He's a respected thought leader. He's a great corporate leader and a great politician with ethics and all manner of things. So he is a great guy, and I understand why the president appointed him. But the question, of course, will always go back to whether he's the right person for this specific job, and whether if you appoint the right guy according to you, he will arrive in Washington as and when he goes there and receive a hearing from the people who matter.
Yeah,
and
because there have been questions about whether someone who is in Parliament should have been appointed as opposed to someone who's a former Deputy Finance Minister. But there's lots of stories to get through, and I know we're actually going to get back to that on the Sunday Tribune because they are leading with that. But just another story that Sisanda also wrote for the Sunday Times, how a Cater Dodger probed to land a top defense job. So obviously, Nontobeko Mafu. That questions about appointments, questions about gross incompetence as well, irregular expenditure coming through, given some of the projects that had been permissible. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. The report is based on the news report is based on an internal report that was generated about her performance as DDG in a section of the department, and it said that there are issues that relates to poor management of finances in the department and a litany of other wrongs, and recommended that action must be taken against her. Now, people in the department are surprised that regardless of the report sitting there, she has now resurfaced and she's acting DG. She's the boss lady now. Yeah. And so they are asking, so what happened to this report? We go into what the report has found, and so on and so on, and ask questions about
procurement processes, supply chain management issues as well. Obviously, just shining a spotlight on appointments in public sector and competence, given the state of affairs and what's needed for the country. So leadership and trust deficit is also some of the themes that are being questioned there. I need to move on. So I want to then go back now to the Sunday Tribune, because it's now just in relation to SABC Jonas Jonas's appointment
Sure.
as special envoy. Diplomatic relations at stake with Jonas's appointment. So again, to your question earlier,
Sure.
was he the right appointment? Some, obviously, as I mentioned earlier on, questioning whether someone from Parliament itself, as an MP, should have been appointed instead. The stakes are high. There were private remarks that he had echoed.
Yes.
Trump is sensitive to criticism. What does this
Yes.
mean? How will he be received? Tell us a little bit more about these trade relations. Also, what options are available for South Africa at this point in terms of the trade wars and stances and sides?
Yeah, no, the options to us aren't many, but there's a lot that is at stake. You would have seen earlier in the week, I think Audi, a division of Volkswagen, saying we need state intervention because we're being squeezed out of the market because of the influx of cheaper Chinese vehicles, etc. But the tariff announcements by the U.S. president are likely to add to the pressure that the motor manufacturing industry is facing in South Africa, and of course that appointment also happens as we are about to be kicked out of AGOA. So what are the implications likely to be there? There's a lot on the table for Jonas and whoever gets appointed as the ambassador much later, in terms of the implications for jobs, for people in our country, and for the general performance of the South African economy. But is he the right guy? We will know in time. I think as a country, he has already been appointed, and the president has indicated that he's not changing his mind. He's supporting him. So as a country, I think we can only wish him the best, because he must succeed. Because if he doesn't succeed, it's fellow South Africans, it's our economy, and it's jobs that are on the line that get affected. And I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but
yeah. Well, we can play with an imaginary crystal one if you want to go there.
But if he's going to succeed or not, I mean, it's something that we will know in the months
I mean, there's
ahead.
also other issues that have come to the fore beyond race and misperceptions about how Afrikaners are treated, the white genocide. There's the Israel ICJ case, and obviously Israel is a close ally to the USA, and then the tariff wars that continues. So, all right, more questions and answers at this point. Let's continue. Just another story there. Durban welcoming 1.3 visitors for a thriving holiday season. There's been lots of public holidays. People have had to do a lot of things with their children to stay busy, and Durban seems to be benefiting from this. Yeah,
I think it's a turnaround of sorts, given the challenges that eThekwini has experienced in the last few months in relation to how the heavy rains in there have affected infrastructure, and how that infrastructure has led to spillage into the ocean and E. coli that's affected the beaches, and that has had the effect of dissuading people from going to Durban or viewing Durban as their favorite holiday destination, etc., etc. But it seems that is changing, and the numbers are beginning to go back to Durban.
So, as we continue with more news now, the Sunday World also coming through. Let's get into the big headline, Mashatile Sava's assassination attempt. So earlier on, we did see that he was okay, or he appeared to be okay. He was in KZN, attending a church service on this Easter Sunday. But it reads, byline reads, a deputy president's office says his car was shot at several times en route from the ANC meeting at Boksburg. So 12 cartridges were found on site. Let's talk to what picture is being painted through this, and what are the implications? How should we be reading into this at this point?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's an interesting piece. I see that the editors at Sunday World have put "survives assassination" in quote, because they want to create a distance between themselves and the people who are making the claim that it's not us, it's not a common cause or a thing that is established, but it is the office that it's itself saying that he has survived an assassination. All right. I've looked at the piece.
Yes.
The thing that's a bit concerning for me is that the political office is speaking more than the police are speaking. And if it's an attempted assassination, you would expect the police to be out there and communicating to everybody. I would have expected the police commissioner to take the lead, to call a press conference and say, I want to assure South Africans that the life of the deputy president is safe. It's a worrying piece. Much still needs to be done, I think, around that.
And perhaps also looking at other people along whose perspectives we need to incorporate, perhaps to get a more holistic view of what is said to, what they're trying to relay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But also, I mean, if you look at the context, within the ANC, there's like this jostling for positions and stuff. And so if Trump has survived an attempted assassination and wins the presidency, would that mean, what does that mean in the context of ANC succession debates in the country? I mean, until the police commissioner speaks on the record and speaks very clearly about what has happened, I would like to say that I understand why those editors chose to put the quotation marks around the assassination.
Okay, I need to wrap up. There is obviously that big story about Babita alleged mastermind facing arrest. That's on page 3. So actress accuses businessman of ordering a botched hit. Let's just talk through this because obviously issues now about Tobejani, who's the actress in question. She is in the Tebogo, coming through to say that well-placed sources close to the investigation allege that crime intelligence unit members who are investigating the man's alleged involvement in the looting of Prasa, they obtained a seizure and search warrant against him. Businessman really just also coming through in relation to Babita Diakoran. She was obviously murdered there. So allegations at this point. Let's just look at the links and what the crux of the matter is.
Sure. They don't identify the businessman, but Tebogo, the actor, has written a very strongly worded letter to the NPA to say, why is there inaction around the arrest of the person who's, at the end of the day, responsible for orchestrating this thing, and that this information is available to you because you have looked at his phone records, you have looked at what the title there says is the communication between this ringleader and the people who made or attempted to kill her. And so she's asking, so are you waiting for me to die before you can take action? And that happens, of course, in the context of somebody who is implicated, according to this report, to the killing of Babita, something that has concerned all of us in the country about, how do you report corruption and end up being killed like that. And now if the NPA and the police are not taking action against somebody that they've identified, the question is why?
All right, so Makhudu, thank you. I know that there was plenty more stories we could not get through, but thank you for weighing on some of those big ones.
Thank you for having me.
Also just wishing you all the best for the week ahead, and we'll see you soon. So that was Makhudu Sefara, of course, editor of Sunday Times and TimesLIVE, weighing in on those big stories making headlines on the newspaper front. We explored the Sunday Times, Sunday World, and the Sunday Tribune.